Hello, this is Dr. Wyatt once again. Welcome to English 2311, Technical and Business Writing. We are about to start Unit 3. Unit 3 is career documents. Career documents, really, two things: resume, cover letter. There are other things we will discuss during this unit, including online profiles and your online application process. We will also discuss elevator pitches and interview techniques. But the documents, resume, cover letter, very straightforward. I do want to talk to you a little bit about the complications of resumes in today's online job search. The online systems use something called ATS. Now, ATS stands for two different things. One is applicant tracking systems. Applicant tracking systems are just databases. You upload your resume, it goes into a database, and that database uses artificial intelligence to screen you. So applicant tracking systems are, I would say, dumb databases in some ways. They just look for keywords, they just look for layout. So applicant tracking systems are simple databases with not very fancy AI tools. So the artificial intelligence is really just a keyword search. It's not intelligent at all. The other ATS is called application talent screening or applicant talent screening. Talent screening is more complicated. That will look at your resume, find out all about you, and then do a background search automatically. So what will happen with that version of ATS, the applicant talent screening, talent screening means just what it says. They're going to screen you. So they'll look for your name, your address, all of those things that are in your resume or your cover letter, and go out and search using AI. So tell me everything you can about Christopher Scott Wyatt. It will find all of my publication history. It will find blogs, social media posts, anything that is publicly available. It doesn't even matter if I mark something unlisted. If it's still searchable, it'll find it. Now, some things marked friends only or direct message will get hidden. But for the most part, if it's online, the talent screening systems, their AI is very aggressive and very effective. So be aware what you have put online is there. And depending on what type of ATS they're using, whether it's a tracking system or talent screening, it's going to find stuff. So let's be careful about that. All right, let's talk about resumes. Resumes, you need to keep them simple in today's world. Don't get too fancy and graphic oriented unless you are in the graphic arts. If you're in a design field, everything I'm about to say may not matter. And that's because they're going to want a PDF of a beautifully designed visual resume. You can do those with tools like Canva, Adobe Illustrator. There are other tools online, some free resume makers. So if you do a search for resumes or free resumes online, a lot of those really are just front ends to Canva. And what they do is they charge $1, sometimes only $3, but $1 to $3. And they actually are just Canva templates. That's what those are. And you pay a monthly fee to get a fancy resume. But for the applicant tracking systems, you want to keep it simple. So let's take a look here in Microsoft Word, and I'm going to show you how and why you can create a very simple resume that gets through the ATS screening. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my layout for a resume. So what I do is I choose layout, margins, and I go with narrow margins. Now, narrow margins means that I'm going with a 1/2 inch around instead of the normal 1 inch that you would use in business. This isn't perfect, but it's very effective for print and for online submissions. The reason I say it's not perfect is I've gone in and they've hole punched everybody's resume and they have them in a binder. And so that 1/2 inch can become a problem if it's too close to where they hole punch. You may not believe it, but they do print resumes when they do interviews. They'll have them in front of the interview committee. So I did the 1/2 inch all the way around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click way up high so I end up in the header region. The reason I'm using the header region is I want to tell it that I want a different first page. The different first page is useful if I go onto a second page. I don't want my name large and my address large. I want the name and the heading information to be larger only on the first page. This may not apply if you're only doing a one-page resume, and one-page resumes have been found to be more effective with ATS systems. So a one-page resume is more effective with ATS. However, if you're my age, over 50, you might end up with a two-page resume whether you like it or not, just because you want to list enough of your experience. So I'm starting up here in the header. I'm going to go back to home, and I'm going to choose title. And using the title, I'm going to spell out my whole name. And forgive the moment there, I had a little bit of a typo, but there we are. There's my full name. Now I'm going to go down a line, and I'm going to use subtitle as another style. So I'm going to go to subtitle, and under the subtitle, I might put my contact information. So I'm going to put CS Wyatt at, and then address.com. Obviously not my real email, but you get the idea. I'm going to do a space. Now on the Mac keyboard, I'm going to do Option 8. Option 8 puts a bullet, which I always like, and then I'm going to put my phone number. So again, I didn't put a real phone number, but there it is. What I might do then is click down here and begin my resume. The way that you generally want to begin it is with education. In the past, they said put a personal statement. Those personal statements aren't read anymore by a lot of the ATS systems. So putting the personal statement may not be beneficial, and that would eat up an inch that you want for your content. The personal statement stuff can be in your cover letter. It can be in a blurb that they allow you to put online, but it's best to keep the resume as simple as possible with these new ATS systems. The personal statement used to be also called an objective. So if you wanted to do the objective, you could. I would not put a heading for it. I would just type the paragraph. If you do a personal statement or an objective, I would do it without a heading. So I might put here, seeking a managerial position on a web design team. So that's really short, but that's where I would do it. Now, I'm not going to actually do a statement like that. It wouldn't be appropriate for someone with multiple years of experience. You generally don't need that. If you've already been in management, that's going to show up in the resume. So saying I'm a management level or I'm an executive level employee doesn't matter because you're going to see that in your career experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. Now, typically what you're going to do for a resume for a first major job, or if you're going to do it in academia, you start with education. Now, I'm not starting with heading level 2. I'm starting with heading level 3 because it's a little smaller, and I'm going to put education. Now, I want to pause right there and show you why I'm using headings and why I'm using styles. And I'll do this a few times just so you get an idea what happens. But I'm going to go over to the design menu and watch what happens if I choose the red, or if I choose another blue color and another blue. So I wouldn't do anything with an outline like that. So that design is not good. So what you can see is as I'm moving through these, I can get different looks just by choosing different designs. So those different designs are really great. Now I'm going to do Command Z and go all the way back to my original design. So Command Z or Control Z to undo. But as you can tell, using this design really gives me some control. I can change just the colors. So if I'm applying to a company where they use a lot of yellow and orange, I can make everything yellow and orange. If I'm applying to a company that uses blue, I can go back to warm blue, or I can choose the default blue 2. But as you see, I can change those colors. And so that's a lot of fun to experiment with. It's not just the colors you can experiment with, though. You can also change the fonts. So I can choose some fonts to give it a different look. Maybe I want something very elite looking. So a Garamond is a beautiful look. So again, you can change all these things in the design. If you use heading 1, heading 2, title, subtitle, and do this properly, changing the look of your resume is just a matter of a few clicks on the design tab. So I'm going to stick with the Garamond because I like it. So I'm going to stay right there and go back to home. Now for education, some advice here, leave it indented slightly, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the toolbar to make some adjustments here. So in the toolbar, the bottom is the paragraph indent, and I'm going to come over a 1/2 inch. The top mark on the ruler is the first line indent. So that's the first line, no indent. So I'm going to go ahead and input education. Now, education should start with your highest level of education, not your most recent. So I'm a good example of this. My highest level of education is my PhD. So I would start with my PhD. So I'm going to put PhD, and you can either put in or you can just do PhD space and put the title. So I'm going to just put the space, rhetoric, scientific, and technical communication. Now, what you can do is highlight the line. And again, I'm going to use the ruler. The ruler has tabs. Tabs are wonderful. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select one that looks like an arrow pointing backwards. It's an arrow pointing to the left. And I'm going to put it all the way against the margin here. That creates an instant tab. And then I can just tab over and type the year of the resume. The year of the graduate degree in the resume. My apologies. So you can see how easy that was. Now underneath it, what I'm going to do is put the school. So I'll put University of Minnesota, Twin Cities campus. And so that's there. And now I'm going to go down a line and I'm going to go ahead and type the next one. Notice that by doing that, I've kept the tab. So I'm going to go ahead and put my next degree. Now my next degree would be the MFA in, I'm going to put film in digital technology. And that was completed in 2017. So notice it's more recent, but for education, you list your highest attainment first. For everything else, you do go in reverse chronological order, which is the most recent job experience will come first. The most recent award or publication will come first. The most recent certifications, so beyond a degree, you would do newest to oldest. So there we are, and right here I will put Chatham University, Pittsburgh, PA. Now, the reason I didn't put Minnesota, I put Twin Cities campus. The University of Minnesota has multiple campus. You could, if you wanted to do this way, you could do Minneapolis, Minnesota, but the Twin Cities campus is actually its official location. But I could put Minneapolis, MN. Now notice these are too close to each other. So I'm going to make some changes here. First off, I'm going to put the degree in bold. And these are a little too close to each other in my opinion. So there we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the line right here that has the school. And I'm going to choose to adjust the spacing. The spacing is right here. And what I'm going to do is add space after paragraph. And there you are. Now I have a space after that paragraph. If I decide it's too much, I can reduce it. The way you would do that is you could right click and choose paragraph. If I choose paragraph, what I can do is it will bring up this dialog and I can change it saying that I don't want 12 spaces, I want 6 points. So there, now I have 6 points between the paragraphs, which is half a line, and it looks nice. So there we are. There's education. Now I'm going to go back to heading 3, and I'm going to put experience. And again, I would follow the same process that I did for education. I'm going to put experience, assistant professor of English and communication. And I want to show you how useful the format painter is. When you're doing a resume, you're going to want to copy the same formatting over and over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just hit tab once, and I'm going to put 2025 to, let me do that, to 2026. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the format painter. So I'm going to highlight a line that I like. I'm going to click the format painter, and then I'm going to apply that format to the current line. And there you are. Now I'm going to change that from bold to standard type, and there it is. And now I will type in the university. Oh, still bold. So I will put in, this is at Temple College, and it's Temple, Texas. And then I could either do a bullet list of the things I've done at Temple College, or I could just list the next experience. Typically, for each experience, you do list 3 to 6 bullets. So you generally try to have 3 bullets or 6. Something in between that is okay. So 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't want a dozen bullets. Research has shown 6 bullets is sort of optimal, and 7's pushing it. So when I see a dozen bullets or even more, and I've seen 20 or 30 bullets on a resume, that's not very effective. So I'm going to do what a standard list would be for a professor, which will be courses taught. Notice that I just did the asterisk and hit the space. It's nicely aligned. It lines up with the position right there. And then I would list what I've taught because I'm a professor. So instead of starting with a verb, you start with the course. Now this is only for professors. So I'm going to put English 2311. And then I would put the course title, which is Technical and Business Writing. And now I'm going to put a semicolon in my case, and I would type how many sections. So maybe I've taught 3 or 4 sections. Maybe I've taught 2. It doesn't matter. But I'm going to go ahead and put 4 sections. And then I would list another English course. So I've got 1301. Composition 1, and maybe I've taught 8 sections. So that's what I would do if I were doing an education resume where I'm just listing the courses. And if you go online and you actually look at the resumes, or what are called CVs for your instructors, they just list the courses that they've taught at each institution. That's a standard. But if I wanted to list other types of employment, I'm going to go ahead and use heading 3, and I'm going to do experience. And I'm going to put this in parentheses so you can see it. This would be if it were industry experience or other experience outside of education. So then I would put my employer. So I'm actually going to put an employer. I'm going to call it Joe's Garden Shop. And I'll hit tab. And I will say that I worked at Joe's Garden Shop from 2021 to 2024. Maybe I did it before I went into teaching, right? You never know. So now I'm going to use that same trick of the format painter. So I'm going to grab that format painter and I'm going to click on it. There it is, all nice. I'm going to change that out of bold. And I'm going to use a longer dash just because I think it looks good. And maybe my job at Joe's was roast tender. And so now you want to start with verbs. You want to start with active verbs for each thing you did. So you might say, most important task, pruned T, classic, and hybrid roses for optimal growth patterns. Right, so that would be how you would do an industry listing. Now I will do the other one, provided advice to customers resulting in a 20% decline in rose returns. Now that's called a PAR statement, a problem, action, and result. So let's say that customers were planting their roses and the roses were dying. So I started giving them advice on how to prune them and how to feed them. And because of that advice, there was a 20% decline in rose returns. Notice in a resume, unlike other documents, you can use digits and you can use symbols. So I did say resulting in a 20% decline in rose returns. So that is how you would format a resume. Be sure that you include sections that are appropriate. You should include education, experience, and skills. For the skills section, I always suggest doing it in multiple columns. So there are some various ways you can do that. I'm going to do a heading 3 just so you see it, and I'm going to do skills. The best way to do the skills is, as I said, as columns. So I'm going to do some quick bullets, and then I'm going to show you how to make them columns. There are other ways to do it using tabs and other settings, but this I have found maintains the best layout for ATS systems. And again, we want to play the game. We want to get through those ATS systems, especially the talent screening systems that are using AI. So I'm going to put my skills, and I'm going to put conversational Spanish, because that would be important, obviously, in education or at Joe's Garden Shop. It might be useful to be bilingual. And maybe I can say video certification from Apple and Avid. That wouldn't actually be a skill so much, but I'll go ahead and put Microsoft Certified Professional, TIA A+ Technician. Now these are obviously not in any particular order. I'm just listing some here. Actual certifications. I can't think of anything else to include, quite honestly. I will put here online course design and audio podcasting. So that should be 6. Let me check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you do it right, then what you can apply are the column tools and get a really nice result. So what I'm going to do is format the columns. Let me see here. Layout. It should have columns. And now I'm going to tell it 2. Look at that. And now I have a beautiful layout. That gives you an example of how to do a resume. It is ready to be finished, to be filled in. It doesn't take long, but now this is an optimized resume for ATS, keyword searches, the databases, all the tools that are out there. Again, I can go back to the design and I can do things like change the fonts. So if I wanted to test it with another font, I could. And if I wanted to test it with other colors, I could. Now that resume has multiple purposes with lots of ways to tweak it for different employers. Like I said, if I know the employer, their color scheme is yellow, I can choose yellow. If I know their color scheme is blue, I can choose blue. That's very nice. I can get close to the fonts that they use. So maybe they use Century Gothic. Maybe they use Arial, which is going to give me a slightly different look. And again, my favorite is the Garamond. That's just mine because it's elegant. But there you are. That is how to do a resume. Doing a cover letter is almost as easy. There are samples in the textbook, but the resume is the one that I want you to pay attention to. The resume is the key document in today's job search, and having an online friendly resume is extremely important. When you are done with the resume, save it with your name. Your name and the word resume works really well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do save. And when I save it, I don't want it to be called education, right? I want to call it Wyatt resume. And that way it's named something that can be found by the employer, by their database, things like that. If you want to keep it evergreen, don't include a date, just do your last name and resume. If you have a common last name, like Smith, Jones, Garcia, what you might do is include your initials. So Wyatt CS resume would work, or CS Wyatt would work, and then save it. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So it's saved right there to the desktop. The other thing you can do when you're all done is you can also do save as. And if you do a save as, what's really nice about that is you can save it as a PDF. A lot of employers will ask for a PDF. So if I do the save as, and I want to show you this, one moment. Forgive me. It would be the same dialogue, and what you do is instead of Word doc, you drop it down and you choose PDF. Unfortunately, I can't do that on this particular system, but Word on your personal computer, you can do File, Save As, and then choose PDF. It'll optimize it for uploading. That is all. I hope you have enjoyed this demonstration. I hope you have seen how easy it is to make an elegant and fun resume. Change it up, experiment with different fonts, different spacing. There's a lot you can do. Again, your Word skills will come in very handy as you do every document, but your Word skills really get tested with resume creation. This is, again, Dr. Wyatt with English 2311, Technical and Business Writing, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. Good luck on the resumes, and be sure to look at the cover letter samples in the course text. Thank you so much.